folks. I'm Tom Kinsella, and Norm's wrong. I am not going to grade you. I turned in my grade last Friday, and I'm done with that for a few months at least. Paul and I are going to talk about SoJourn, but we're going to talk a little bit more broadly about the student staff local history press that we've been working on for the last 6 or 7 years at this point. So here's my introductory slide. We've got a lot of publications. We have SoJourn, which comes out as best we can do it. We're a little late sometimes, twice a year. Part of the reason that we're not always on time is that the students, as good as they are, don't give us as much help as we need, and a fair amount of work ends up falling on Paul's or on mine. Part of the reason, and one of the reasons why I'm really happy to talk to you, that we're a little late sometimes, is we're chewing through South Jersey history. We've got 10 issues of SoJourn currently. We've got over 1,000 pages of South Jersey history that we've published in the last 5 years. And, you know, that's done, it's gone, it's here. We need more, so I know some of you are looking into your hearts thinking, I got a couple of stories. And I want to encourage you, please contact me, please contact Norm, who would contact Paul or me, and we could talk about things. We've got, let's see if I can make this thing go here.
Get the lights a little bit.
We've got a number of books.
You need the lights now?
Yeah, we could, a little bit. You don't need to see me, you need to see the screen. These are the 3 most recent books we've published. You know, SoJourn we're going to talk mostly about today, our journal. But we've got these things. This is coming, it's on the truck being delivered to Stockton right now. This is a little paperback. It's the second collection of environmental essays written by Dallas Lore-Sharp, who was an early 20th century South Jersey author. Ended up being up in Massachusetts. It's really interesting short essays about our own backyards. What happens if you were to go out into the swamps, were to go out into the fields, and take a good look. This is a lovely hardcover book that we just published. We've got 2 hardcovers, printed, sewn, lovely books. Claude Epstein, who's the author of No Wild Rivers, was one of the founding members of Stockton 50 years ago this year. He came on as an environmental scientist, and he's writing about the social and environmental history of South Jersey rivers. And he does Morris County too, right? Monmouth County too. So there's some very interesting history from Native Americans through almost today, I suppose, that he's writing about. We're very proud of that book. William J. Lewis has written a really interesting book for young adults, children really, with Tiny Joe the mascot, talking about the nature, things that you will see if you walk out into the pine barrens. He's got his little mascot. You see Tiny Joe on the cover here. It's a fully illustrated, full color paperback book that's actually done really well lately. We're really proud of that book. I've just picked 2 of the 30 books that we published. Here's 2 more. This is fairly recent. You may know Elizabeth Coleman White of Whitespog was the co-inventor of the modern blueberry. She lived a really interesting social justice life in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, and was also an important agriculturalist. That's a dynamite book. I really enjoy that a lot. This is the autobiography of Elizabeth B. Alton, Atlantic City girl. She is the founder, she's the mother of Stockton. The reason that Stockton is not in North Jersey is because of that woman right there, who, when in the mid-60s, New Jersey said, we're going to have a bond issue, we're going to have 2 new state colleges, and all of North Jersey went, yay, we get 2 more colleges. She said, no, God, no. And she started a groundswell down here to get a college, which ends up being Stockton. But the core of this book, which is the most fascinating to me, is her 40 years behind the scene, working her way throughout the administration of Miss America pageant. And she talks about the Miss America pageant. She walked as a 13-year-old in the first parade, before it was the Miss America pageant, and worked her way into the 1970s as vice president. It's not a salacious tell-all, but it's a very interesting book. But what Paul and I really want to talk about is SoJourn, which is our about 100-page journal that comes out twice a year. Typically, it's just 10 articles written by you or people like you, Norm. We're always looking for articles, and what I thought I'd do, just very briefly, is it's unfair for me to say I'm going to pick out my 5 favorite articles that we published over the past 10 issues. But these are 5 articles I like a lot. I'm going to say just a little bit about each one, and what I'm going to try to do is show you the types of articles that we have, and maybe jar you a little bit into thinking about your own stories. This is called Bipolar State. It was written by a friend, Bob Barnett and Steve Chinovsky. It's about a 20-page article talking about the fact that we're north and south, if we're not north and central in South Jersey. And how can the 4th smallest state in the nation, be so bifurcated in this way? And he can start to talk about all of the different ways to split North Jersey, South Jersey, from the Keith line to, patterns of Native American languages, to area codes, to where is the line between you are Giants fans, you are Eagles fans. It's a really interesting article. It really tries to get at the peculiarities, let me say, or the lovely peculiarities of New Jersey. This next article is something called Morris River Fire Deals Serious Damage to Oyster Houses. There's about 10 slides or postcards that a friend of ours, Mickey Smith, had in his collection of a fire that took place in 1907 down by Bivalve. The oyster house burned. And Mickey had these 10 postcards, but no text. So what I ended up asking one of my students to do, Louis Burgess, it's been long enough I forget Louis. Louis went on to the databases looking at the newspapers from 1907 and read about 50 articles. It was a pretty big fire. It made national news. And cobbled together from this what happened. There's really lovely photographs. You can't quite see from where you are the nanny dressing of some of these oystermen here. They've got their ties and suit coats on, most of them. There's a young-looking woman with a nice little scarf on who's going to go to work on the oysters pretty soon, too. But we don't even have to have articles. All we need are images. We could probably build the article if there's enough research that we can do to help support it. This is an article that I love. It's Jerseyisms. This is something that we republish. We'll publish new things. We'll republish older things. This is something that was published in 1896 in a journal of language, talking about different, and I won't be able to see this, which is a shame, different patterns of Jersey language. And some of them, of course, you'll know. Back up. I'll read it from here. Some of these things you'll know, like scrub oak, a low-growing species, usually the first timber after fire, but there'll be a phrase like this: "Oh, be joyful." Oh, be joyful. And back in 1896, that meant to be hilariously drunk. How was he last night? Oh, he was joyful. Oh, be joyful. Lots of really interesting things in this article. You're just reading sayings. Made in Nesco by Mary Jo Keitzman is just a family story. Her family in the West Coast lived in Nesco. Several other families, of course, too, related. And she's describing how her family moved to upstate New York, but her mother, who was a blueberry girl, just couldn't stop understanding the world through Nesco, New Jersey, and made up stories and talked about how she used to pick this and pick that and grow this and grow that and go swimming here and go swimming there. It's a really lovely story that really gets at a time that's gone, but it's also family, and we don't have to have South Jersey history that's talking about the railroads all the time. We can have it about your family. If you have the details, we would love to talk with you about that. Here's a good article that a friend of mine brought to us. You'll know this guy, Norman Reeves Goose here, born a peacemaker. So this is Norm's article here about Jeremiah Lee's with a little bit there. This, in fact, we've got issues. This is the issue that came out of, this is our deluxe SoJourn issue. It's usually 100 pages, but this was our Rev War issue, which is 145 pages. We put only the finest articles in that, and Norm got in that one. There is, I think I've got the best job at Stockton, because I work with students, and I work with Paul, and I work with community members who want to tell me things I don't know about South Jersey, which I've really come to love. I'm a Rochester, New York boy, but I've been here for 30 years. And the more I pay attention to South Jersey, the more I'm just struck by the splendors of this place. It's really interesting history, as you, I understand, know. I'm going to leave you with this lovely picture of Paul Schopp, who's going to wax eloquent a bit about some of the things that we put in the SoJourn. I'll drop it in when you tell me to.
Alrighty. Well, Tom asked me to pick out a few of the so-called fillers, or in this case here, back cover illustration that appeared on the Volume 5, Number 2 issue, which was all railroad stations. And this shows the West Jersey and Seashore Electric Line, which ran between Camden and Atlantic City, as well as Camden and Millville. They branched off at Newfield. And they completed this electric line in 1906. The high-speed cars began operating between the two cities, Camden and Atlantic City, in September of 1906. Another company, the Atlantic City and Shore Railroad, began operations earlier that year and struck an agreement to use the West Jersey's route, which it had acquired from the Philadelphia and Atlantic City narrow gauge, to Summers Point. So in Pleasantville, passengers riding on the West Jersey's electric trains could transfer to the Atlantic City and Shore interurbans for a ride to Summers Point, where there was small boat service, would then travel across Great Egg Harbor Bay to Ocean City, and you would reach Peck's Beach that way. In 1907, go ahead and change it. In 1907, the West Jersey Seashore and its parent company, the Pennsylvania Railroad, completed a 2-mile-long trestle and steel movable bridge over Great Egg Harbor Bay between Summers Point and Ocean City, allowing the trolleys to travel between the two resort towns at last. Of course, the West Jersey built this bridge with the idea of operating its electric trains into Ocean City. And they began that service in 1910, but it was never a great success, and it ended with America entering World War I. The railroad began discussion of resuming the service and studied the possible increased revenue from such service in 1925, but the studies precluded the railroad from running the service. The Atlantic City and Shore, known as the Shore Fast Line, continued operations until 1948, when a hurricane damaged this bridge, and its repairs were more than the transit company could afford, and that ended service to Ocean City. This view is taken from Volume 3, Number 2, which shows SoJourn, page 94. This is the steamer Clio. She was launched on February 24th, 1898 at the shipyard of Neely and Levy at the foot of Palmer Street in the Kensington section of Philadelphia. The Steelhole Clio was built for F.B. Watkins of Odessa, Delaware. And while she was home ported in Wilmington, Delaware, she operated out of Odessa. She measured 115 feet long, 23 feet wide, and had a draft of 6.5 feet. She required a crew of 7 and had an engine rated at 165 horsepower. She carried produce and passengers from the ship between Delaware landings and Philadelphia on a regular schedule and was available for charters and excursions as shown here. She arrived at the Odessa wharf from the shipyard on April 9, 1898, carrying 39 passengers from Philadelphia and replaced an older, shorter vessel with the same name. Now, looking at this image, here's a newspaper account of the excursion that generated this postcard, and the next one, which I'll show you in a moment. The steamer Clio took a goodly number of people from Hancock's Bridge, Harmersville, and Canton on the excursion to Philadelphia last Saturday. The trip on Alloways Creek in the Delaware was truly delightful on this fast steamer with our townsman, Joseph B. Fox, as pilot. Many of the excursionists visited the Fairmount Park and the zoo. The steamer landed here, Hancock's Bridge, at 10:30 that night with the pleasure seekers. Now, as this second postcard shows, the Glasby Band accompanied the excursion. It was, I originally presumed that the attendees that you saw on the first card were Sunday school students. And it was not until I purchased this card several years later that I realized that it was just an excursion. I found a newspaper article, I put all the facts together, and then we have these two cards. But the thing is, there are myriad stories enrobed in these two postcards, not the least of which is about the photographer of both cards, William J.S. Bragway from Salem County. But we need authors who are interested in telling those stories. Okay, Tom. All right. So this is my final one tonight. This is the front page or the cover of the Independence Day program from Woodbury, New Jersey, 1943. And I'm going to read you the caption I originally wrote for this. You'll have to forgive me if I get a little emotional, but patriotic things do that to me. Men and women were joining the military in unprecedented numbers as the Second World War dragged on for the United States. 19 months into the global conflict, the city of Woodbury, New Jersey, held its annual Independence Day celebration, complete with an amazing full-color program. Patriotism was at a fever pitch, and most Americans had hearts swelled with national pride. The program cover reflects these themes using the iconography of the period, the bald eagle, the shield based on the American flag overlaying a similarly designed V for victory. Dignitaries and ordinary citizens filed into the high school auditorium that evening, while the Cedar Concert Orchestra tuned up, waiting to play a number of Sousa marches. A quartet from Boy Scout Troop 51 prepared to sing a special patriotic number in 4-part harmony. Officials provided the usual obligatory rousing speeches, and those in attendance who came to hear the presentations of music and the spoken word bonded together as prideful Americans bound with a single purpose: to defeat malevolent evil and win the war and bring the GIs back home to their families. The war would drag on for over 2 more years before the hopes and dreams of those Woodbury residents would be realized. I think today we can agree that some of that unity of purpose would be good in our country. Okay, Tom.
One more for it, Paul.
All right. Well, you want to talk about it?
Oh, it's your
Okay. Well, we're currently working on an issue that's thematic for coastal New Jersey, which will not only be the Atlantic coast and the Back Bay, but also the Delaware Bay and River. This was a Harper's Weekly cover I recently acquired, which Tom colorized, that shows a man out with a punter shooting railbirds in the reeds, probably either down in Cumberland County or perhaps off of Gloucester City. So Norman is preparing a Brigantine Railroad article for that issue, and it's not too late for you, for anyone else here who'd be interested in providing an article or even just a couple of family photos with some captions. I mean, we're really interested in anything you have to offer us because South Jerseyans want to know what you know.
Exactly. I will close up by saying we have a fire sale going on up here. Typically, you can get SoJourn on Amazon. I think it's $14. It may be shipping on Amazon. And events like Lines on the Pines, we'll sell SoJourn. It'll be our loss leader for $10. We're willing to go down to $5 today. What we have here is the current issue of SoJourn and the splendid Rev War issue of SoJourn. So if you're interested, let me know. Everything that we've left on the tables is for you. We've got gifts for you. I will reinforce that this is an educational exercise. Our students work to learn how to edit, to learn how to lay out and design. So if it looks good, it's all their work. If it doesn't look good, it's all our fault. Thanks a lot.
And we've had a number of students who have obtained positions in the graphics and publishing industry because of taking our course.
Exactly. So it works.